Okay, let's move on to Florida. 6-7 a year ago. Their win total is set at 7 this year. So expecting some improvement, of course. 2-6 in conference last year, 34th per F plus, 39 on offense, 30 on defense. So very average on both sides of the ball. Projected by SP Plus to be number 23 in the country this year, which feels like that's a sizable step up, but it's also not like wild expectations. And I feel like for Billy Napier in his first season, doesn't it make sense that like you're looking for some proof of concept, you're looking for them to be solid, you're looking for a step up. If you're a Florida fan, you're not asking them to win the SEC East right away. Is that kind of how is that the vibe you get from Florida? Like you're looking for them to just be that 7-9 win team.
Well, they better not be looking for them to win the SEC East. Yeah, there's a number of teams ahead of them that have taken Florida's down years and made gains. I think Kentucky and Tennessee have both really made gains on Florida as just becoming the next team up in the East after Georgia. So yeah, they better not be expecting that. I will say the last couple of weeks, Billy Napier is crushing it on the recruiting trail right now. Absolutely burning the house down. So yeah, I think you do have to be optimistic as a Florida fan. You mentioned like proof of concept. I think that's huge. Like all of these first year coaches, they can be great recruiters. They can do all this stuff, and that's great and awesome. But you really do have to. I mean, it has to work on Saturdays. It has to work on Saturdays. And with Napier, he's never coached at this level before. He's a young guy. He's not that old. He is a Saban disciple, which, I mean, should be good news because almost all those Saban disciples do quite well. Mm-hmm. So, you think? Like, I think they should. I think they need to get tougher, kind of on both sides of the ball. But like Florida should. I think college football in the SEC East really needs Florida to be a really good program. And I think they don't need Florida to be going 6-6 or 7-5. They need Florida to be a power, threatening for possibly a playoff spot. Like Florida has the talent laying around to do that. Just opened their new facility this past week. Like it was a fancy new facility too. If we want to talk about their schedule for this year, they start off with two absolute bangers. That Utah comes to town and then Kentucky comes to town, and both of those games, like those are going to be really good games. Is Utah? Did I see that right? Is Utah 5 in the new AP? The first AP poll out, I believe they're not.
Notre Dame is 5.
Okay,
I think Utah is. I mean, I know they're top 8, but I'm not exactly sure where they fell in.
I got you. I was watching a Joel Klatt video. That could have been him putting Utah way up there. Of course he does. Utah and USC, he thinks are going to win everything. Florida. Okay. How much do you really believe in Anthony Richardson? I think that's the question for this year. Just from a pure like win-loss standpoint, because there's a lot gone from their receiving core. We don't really know what they have at receiver. They had a transfer in from Arizona State who was kind of all the buzz in spring camp, went down with an injury. It looks bad.
Ricky Pearsall, yeah.
That's right. We don't know when he'll be back, if he will. Or at least I don't know. Maybe you do. I think it's going to be like, that's going to be interesting, man. Like they're going to have to run the ball a lot against Kentucky and Utah to start out the year. Like that doesn't sound like a great time. So yeah. Did you have an early lean on Florida?
I'm okay. So the number's 7.
Yeah.
I'm slightly over. I like the push insurance there. Like if this was 7.5, it'd be a lot scarier. But I feel pretty good about them. Now that's just one more win than they got a year ago when basically they quit on the season.
Yeah.
You mentioned Anthony Richardson, kind of a physical freak. We know that. Backed up by Jack Miller, the transfer from Ohio State. So I feel like that. I don't know if Anthony Richardson will be amazing, but I feel like one of the two will be at minimum solid. I think they're going to get solid quarterback play this year, better than what they got with Emory Jones. Yeah, wide receiver is a huge question mark. I would have felt better about it with Ricky Pearsall being healthy. Yeah. Justin Shorter was, the Penn State transfer from a few years ago, was like the number one receiver in his class coming out of high school, and has flashed. But it feels like the time is now. Like the time is now for him to. He needs to step up. He needs to be more than just a deep ball threat. Like he needs to be an all around receiver. They need him badly. They need several
to get
guys.
They need to get him some stickum for his gloves. He drops so many passes. That's the main thing. He has all the measurables. Like you watch him run. It's like, wow, that like how does anyone cover this guy? And then he drops the ball. It's like, oh, I guess you don't really have to. So when I was looking through their schedule, their crossover to the SEC West is tough. They go to Texas A&M, and then they have LSU. That's tough. That's tricky. Mm-hmm. For those reasons, like that's why I would be leaning on the under. Like you said, I think the push is probably the most likely. I think 7-5 is probably where they end up, but I would lean 6-6 over 8-4 if that makes sense. That's where I would lean. That's why I would just trend towards the under. Again, this number I think is really, really good. I think 7 is a great number for them this year. And I don't feel strongly either way, just a slight lean to the under.
Sure. I'm kind of the same, just a slight lean to the over. I do think there are a few, like we mentioned, a receiver. Their interior defensive line is very thin. They have Gervon Dexter, who's very good, but after him, it feels like it's a bunch of nobodies. Yeah. And like some of those weak spots on their roster, like they will lose some games by a couple touchdowns this year. You know, they will, but they're not trying to win 11 games. They're trying to win 8, I think. Like, you know, obviously you try to win more than that, but if you go 8-4 this year, you have to feel like the arrow's trending up. And I think they're strong enough at some other positions, like on the edge. You know, you got Brenton Cox Jr., Ventrell Miller, linebacker. The secondary should be pretty solid. I think their offensive line can be pretty good. Like they're strong enough around the rest of their roster. I expect them to be a tough out. So. Yeah, and part of it is just you got Billy Napier as their head coach. I expect them to play harder, frankly, this year than they were going down the stretch, where it just felt like they quit on the season. Yeah. And even then, like they ended up with a win against Florida State in their finale to go bowling.
Yeah.
So even in a season where it almost felt like everything just fell apart, they still went to a bowl game. So I think they'll probably go. My lean is 7-5 or 8-4, more likely than 6-6. That's just my feeling.
So, do you think they have home games with Kentucky and LSU, 2 home games?
Yes.
What's their record in those 2 SEC games?
That one's tough. You could see any record. I guess because of that, probably 1-1 is the most likely, but I think 2-0 is more likely than 0-2.
Really? Ooh.
And
okay,
1-1 is the most likely. I'll go with that. I like the fact that they're both at home.
Yeah.
I also like that they got Mizzou and South Carolina at home. So like those are kind of the next couple teams in the SEC East. And if those were on the road, you'd feel a little worse about those. But I think Florida is a clear step up from those teams talent-wise.
Yes.
And because they get those teams at home, like I expect them to beat Mizzou. I expect them to beat South Carolina. I expect them to beat Vanderbilt, of course, obviously. It's kind of nice that you kind of like when you have Vanderbilt on the road, just because that gets rid of one of your road games, and it's a road win. So that's a bonus. I think they're still better than Florida State. Again, 2 programs, all 3 major Florida programs are like trying to work their way up. I sort of feel like Florida, even with some of the holes in their roster, they have a better roster right now than Florida State. And
yeah. No, so you're counting Florida State as a win. I'm obviously.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. If I'm looking at their losses, it's Georgia and it's A&M.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's another game that they can't win.
I don't know if they can beat Utah. I really don't know if they can beat Utah. This is a Florida team. Last year, this Florida team was 10th in the SEC against the run. And they didn't really add anyone. Like you mentioned, they do have Dexter. Brenton Cox, former 5-star, still there. Ventrell Miller does come back. I think he had a shoulder injury last year. I believe it was shoulder. Okay. So, like, they have a couple of good players, but they're thin. They're so thin against the run. like I think Utah can really run the ball against them. So like I would be counting Utah as pretty much a guaranteed loss, I think.
I think if it was at Utah, I would feel that way. I feel a
Okay.
little bit better about it. And it's probably more of a lot of analytic systems give home field advantage like 2.5 points or so.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the fact that you have Utah going all the way down to Florida, where it's going to be hot, it's going to be sticky, you're going to have cramping, and it's Billy Napier's first game, so the fans are going to be excited. It feels like it's probably going to be worth more than 2.5 points. So, is that enough to close the gap and make it a coin flip? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't view that as a game they can't win.
Okay. We agree to disagree then on the Gators.
Okay, sounds good.